This is the exact moment where everything started to go wrong for my team, Crystal Palace. Eberezer scores our 5th goal against Villa on the final day of the season. We won 5-0. We finished above Brighton in 10th, 6 wins out of 7 to close the season out, broke all sorts of club records, and now we are 15th. What has changed since Eze scored this goal? Let's talk about it. The summer transfer window, the tactics to start the season, and how we've turned it around, because we've only lost one of our last 9 games to close out 2024, which I think is pretty good going. But before all that, I got a stream deck. Look, oh yeah, normal, but then dramatic effect. Back to normal again. I can do all sorts now. The world is my oyster. Now, the first thing I want to do is dispel this myth that Crystal Palace had a new manager bounce under Oliver Glasner last season. That's the only reason we won any games towards the end of the year. That is fake news, my guy. Let me show you why right now. So, as you can see, Oliver Glasner took over here against Burnley. We won 3-0. They had a player sent off early on in the game. We actually didn't play very well at all. It was a big win, though, because we were kind of on a bit of a bad run of form under Roy Hodgson. You can see a lot of L's and D's up there. Then we didn't win for 5 games. People forget that this happened. Obviously, you would. Why would you care about it now? We're a mid-table Premier League team. We actually went 1-0 up in 4 of the next 5 games and didn't win any of them. We lost away at Spurs. We then drew 1-1 at home to Luton, which was absolutely criminal. They scored a 95th minute equaliser. That was felt like a really big result at the time. Thankfully, it didn't matter. We drew away at Forest, who finished 17th last season. Like, this was not the same Forest this season. We then were terrible away at Bournemouth, and then we lost 4-2 at home to Man City. Obviously, no shame in that. And then we went on the winning run. Another myth people like to say, oh, you play teams that are on the beach. Liverpool would have gone top of the Premier League in April had they beaten us at Anfield that day, and they didn't. West Ham, granted, they just played Leverkusen. They were absolutely shattered after that. I think Newcastle lost one of their last 10 games, and it was to Crystal Palace. Man United were fighting for Europe as well at that point. They still finished like top 6, top 7, didn't they? And they won the FA Cup too. Villa, granted, were hungover as hell in the last game of the season, but they still finished 4th. So they weren't exactly a bad football team. If you think that, oh, Palace teams they played were on the beach, shut up. Dramatic effects. Now let's talk about the team that got Palace to 10th in the Premier League last season. How did we set up? We played pretty much the same 11 every single game, apart from once against Newcastle where IU played instead of Michael Olise. This is how we set up. So Henderson in goal, a weird back 3 when you look at it, but it really, really worked. They actually just gelled so well. Very aggressive back 3. Mitchell and Munoz, who have obviously been ever present really under Glasner. Wharton and Hughes in midfield was just simply magical. And then the front 3. Now, we lost some key players at the end of last season. Some of them were good sales, some of them were not so good sales. Let's start with the not so good sale of Michael Olise. Michael Olise, at the end of last season, was world class. He was one of the best attackers in the Premier League. And you might go, oh, good one, Ollie. You're so biased, blah, blah. The stats do not lie, my friend. They do not lie. Let's go on to shot creating actions per 90 from last season's Premier League. This is where you get the elite creators of the Prem. You've got Kevin De Bruyne, number 1, Maddison, who was amazing last season at Spurs. People forget that. Odegaard, Doku, Fernandes, Bukayo Saka, and just behind Bukayo Saka, by 0.1, you have Michael Olise. You might go, whatever. Goal creating actions per 90. This is, the creme de la creme. You have got Kevin De Bruyne, number 1. Again, wow, what a player. Shot creating actions and goal creating actions, he's number 1. That's crazy. Jota, low-key, really good season. He does play around very good attackers. You know who doesn't play around very good attackers? Is Michael Olise, who is number 3 above Cole Palmer. And you might go, oh, that's just advanced stats, Ollie. Stop being a little nerd. Okay, fine. You want simple stats, do you? Is that what you want? I'll show you simple stats. Goals and assists per 90. You've got Michael Olise, Erling Haaland, and Cole Palmer tied at the top. Is that still not enough for you? Non-penalty goals and assists per 90. There is one clear winner ahead of Erling Haaland and Cole Palmer while playing for Crystal Palace, Michael Olise, who went over a goal and an assist per 90 minutes last season. That is absolutely mental. It's mental. So, obviously, when you lose a player of that caliber, you're going to struggle. Now, when you also look at minutes played last season, you'll notice 2 other big losses to Palace's team. One of them is Joachim Andersen. Now, we got 30 million for him from Fulham, and he is on like 100 plus grand a week, and I don't think it's a bad deal at all for us to sell him. I really don't, and we've replaced him very well, which we'll get onto later. But he did play 38 games last season. He started every single game. I think he got subbed off in injury time like once. Otherwise, he basically played every minute. And he was at the heart of the back 3, which is like a very, very, very important position. I don't think we've got worse there, but obviously we've lost some continuity, which does matter. And then Jordan Ayew, a very underrated loss by neutrals. I think Palace miss Ayew more than we miss Anderson this season. He started 30 games, played 35 games in total, 3rd most minutes in the team. He also plays right, left, or centre. He's just very good, all right? Palace's dribbling and take-ons completed in the Premier League this season is the worst in the Prem. That is very unlike Palace, and that's partly because we lost Olise, who's very good at it, but Jordan Ayew's ball carrying is Elise, and we've really missed that this season. So we lost Ayew, we lost Olise, we lost Anderson. How did we set up at the start of this season once all our players had come back from international duty? That was a big reason we struggled, by the way. We had 7 players playing in major tournament finals, and they all lost. So I think psychologically, that's a pretty big blow. You had Mateta with France, you had Munoz and Lerma with Colombia, and then you had Wharton, Gahey, Eze and Henson with England. Obviously, they didn't all play, but they still have to be fit for that time. They don't really get a rest. So we signed some players in the summer, and this is how we set up to start the season off. The back three, you'll notice a lot of question marks there. That is because we changed our back three 6 times in the first 6 games. We didn't play the same back three once in the first 6 games. Our first win of the season, which was against Spurs, was the first time this season we didn't change the positions or the personnel of our back three. That is not a coincidence. But the big problem, the big failure of Palace's transfer window in the summer was the replacements for Michael Olise. Now, we were told, us Palace fans were told, that we're going to look for some different profiles for different game states. And that looked like Daichi Kamada, Eddie Nketiah, and Ismail Assar. Now, they didn't get a single goal contribution between them until December of this season. Daichi Kamada is still on 0. No goals, no assists. Eddie Nketiah is on 1 assist. Sarr has come good. We'll talk about Sarr in a bit. But this is how we start the season off. So what wasn't working? On paper, this team is decent, apart from the question marks. It's not relegation form. I don't think. Maybe I'm biased. The big problem was the right-hand side. Daichi Kamada, rather than doing what Olise did, which was going into midfield here, going out wide here, pushing on here as well, he kind of just sat here. As the game went on around him, he was just chilling. He was just chilling in that little pocket. Which meant Munoz, who is one of Palace's most important players, I will talk about him later as well, his average position is so advanced normally, and he's key to how we attack, providing width down the right. He clearly didn't like Kamada because he was just basically saying here as well. And we lost all of our attacking thrust with that front three. It just wasn't working at all. So what did we do? We made a change. And this is when a certain Eddie Nketiah comes into the fold. And did it work? No, it didn't. He also was very reluctant to do anything other than float in here. He actually was probably worse at coming to get the ball in midfield because he's a number 9. It's understandable. You'd think he could stretch the play, but he's actually not very quick. And he was not willing to go wide at all. He had a decent shot on him. Obviously proved by the fact he's got 0 Premier League goals this season. But still, he was still a bit of an upgrade, a bit more mobile, a bit of a better ball carrier. But it still wasn't working at all. It just wasn't working. And as a result, Palace didn't win for 8 games this season. We actually had fewer points after 8 games this season than we did when we had Frank de Boer as manager and we lost our first 7 games without scoring a goal. We actually were doing better after 9 games that season than we were after 9 games this season. That is mental, but there was no pressure on Glasner because everyone trusted the process. We knew he was cooking up something crazy. Now, the turning point was the Tottenham game. Crystal Palace won, Tottenham 0, and this is how we set up. We had this back three, which has been our back three ever since, apart from suspensions and Chalobah being ineligible against Chelsea. We then had Mitchell and Munoz, obviously. The midfield has changed a bit since then, but the front three as well has stayed the same. It is the back three and the front three that has facilitated this run of form for Palace, which is 1 defeat in 9 Premier League games. That was to Arsenal. In that time, we played Spurs, we played Villa, we've played Man City, we played Bournemouth, we played Brighton. We haven't lost to any of them. How? How did that happen? I hear you ask. So, let's start with Trevor Chalobah, who I don't think is actually having a very good season. This might be a bit of a hot take. I don't think Chalobah is doing that good this year. Chelsea allegedly won 25 million for him. No thanks. But what he does offer is that hybrid of a right back and a centre back that you really need in the right centre back position, hence right centre back, which basically means Munoz, rather than living here, can now live all the way up here, which I will show you right now. If we go on to average positions from Crystal Palace's game against Chelsea, look how advanced Munoz is. And the irony is Chalobah didn't actually play that game, but because we've now got a system and we know how that right centre-back needs to play, Chris Richards came in, and look at Munoz, number 12. He's further forward than Ismail Assar. All right, so having Chalobah there has given our man Daniel Munoz his confidence back, which is so important for how Palace operate. We also have Lacroix, who is not quite as good at passing as Anderson was, who used to love that little diag, everyone knows that. But Lacroix is very good at stepping into midfield. He's physically a beast, and he's rapid. We have a very quick back three now, very quick. Gahey, Chalobah, and Lacroix are very mobile. So Palace as a team, rather than being quite defensive as they are here, I won't move the whole thing up. Maybe I'll just scroll up. You can see, we're pushing up now. We're pushing a lot further up. And when we do sit deep, we have a serious counter-attacking threat in Ismail Assar. Now, rather than Sarr doing what Olise was doing, which is coming into midfield and kind of being an all-action, world-class right winger, what we have done is we've given Mateta and Eze the responsibility of dropping into midfield and being the good footballers of the front three. Because what Ismaila Sarr is good at is this. Running in a straight line and scoring goals. Sarr effectively lives here now. Just off Mateta, who drops in, holds the ball up, controls long balls forward from Henderson, which is doing very well this season. Eze is not having a very good year. Everyone knows that. Eze has been quiet this season, to say the least. But he has gravity, and that matters because it gives Sarr a little bit of freedom on the right of that front three to just run in behind. He can stay narrow too, because now Munoz is also going forward up here. And all of a sudden, you have a real threat in Sarr and Munoz bombing up and down those wings. And it's working an absolute treat for Palace because we've got threat in behind. Sometimes all you got to do is just hoof the ball. All right? If you're quick and strong, you're going to win football games. And that's what Palace have just worked out at the moment. That's how we've turned it around. This is also despite injuries in midfield to Wharton, who's been out for a while now. Doucouré's coming back to full fitness. He's not really been the same player he was before. Lerma's been in and out of the team as well. Hughes has missed the last couple of games. But what matters is we have consistency in the back three and we have attacking thrust in the front three. Now, what are we going to do in January to hopefully build on this and make the team even better? Now, if I go back to this little screen I've got here, obviously this new system is good, all right, but how can you make it better? Number one is by getting a left wing back who is also going to do this, okay? Unfortunately, Tyreek Mitchell, who has created the most open play chances for Palace this season, and is up there with Anthony Robertson in terms of chances created, he's not got the same thrust that Munoz does. If you look at this position map here, this really actually underlines Palace's problem, okay, in terms of pushing teams back. We're not very balanced because Mitchell is back here and Munoz is up here. That has got to change this window. Palace are allegedly in for an attacking left wing back. I think Mitchell is fine there for now. But getting a young player in who can learn off Mitchell, and Mitchell can learn off them too, I think it'll make a big difference, a really big difference to Palace's team. We have Munoz 2.0 on the other side. That is a big problem. Now, another thing that we lack is a Michael Olise replacement, okay? Sarr is good. I do like Ismaila Sarr, don't get me wrong, but he's not the same kind of player as Michael Olise. So who are Palace going after? Now, of course, we're talking about Crystal Palace FC here. So we've gone to the EFL. We've gone to Millwall, South London, Romain Esse, who is basically another inverted, left-footed right winger, 19 years old. Apparently, we wanted to loan him back to Millwall originally, but our squad dictates the fact that we need to keep him in the team. This guy is very raw. His name sounds like Eze, so I like him already. But this is the profile we were missing, all right? It's not an Olise replacement like for like. Olise, as I said, was world-class, but it is the same profile, which gives us something different. It gives us a bit more control in midfield. It gives us a left-footed right winger cutting in and a Munoz overlapping. I like this transfer a lot. I don't think he'll play every game, but it's still an option. It's a different profile because Kamada and Nketiah have not worked so far. And what this gives Palace is thrust on both sides. It gives us an inverted winger option in terms of Esse. We've got Sarr who could go in behind. You've got Mateta and Nketiah, two different profiles up front. Kamada can replace Eze if he ever gets tired. He's a good presser, Kamada. I'll give him that. Kamada, you can press well. Much better than Eze can. You then got depth in midfield because Kamada can play deeper there too. Wharton, Lerma, Doucouré, Hughes, that's good. And you've got back three that's settled. Now, Guéhi going would be a shame. I don't want Guéhi to go, obviously. I do think he's replaceable in Chadi Riyad, who's a young left-footed centre-back who we signed in the summer. A definitely long-term Guéhi replacement. But what Palace have now is a system that's kind of working and you've got players who know it. And we have options. And now we have options I think will be very dangerous. What is the ceiling for Palace this season? We're 15th now. I don't see why we can't finish in the top 9. I'm throwing that out there now. It's close. We're 9 points behind Fulham. We're halfway through the season. Our form in the last 10 games has been top 6 form. We gave everyone a head start. That's the annoying thing about this season. But there you go. I hope you've learned something today. I hope you've learned why Palace were bad and how we've turned it around. New setup. This is actually so easy for me to record videos now. So do leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends. I'll probably be streaming on this too. I just feel so professional right now. Probably because I'm professional. So have a lovely day, everyone. Dramatic pull in. Whoa, I don't have to move. Don't move.